Hello, Mixed Nutcases. This is Nuke Joss, and we've got another episode of Nutty Bites for you today. And with me, as usual...
Hey, everybody, I'm still Tech.
And Tech is going to introduce us to today's topic because it was all his idea.
Oh, don't blame me, why don't you?
Exactly.
Okay. I've been struggling to find a title for this, but I want to talk about the evolution of fandoms or changing fandoms. And you see this a lot. And we'll get to the big one that everybody's thinking about. We'll get there in the end, but let's take a walk around the neighborhood first. That over time, the things that attracted you to a particular fandom change. Yeah. And is that okay? And is it not okay? And is it okay to not like a thing you liked before anymore? And is it okay to like a thing halfway through its run, you know? So a big thing to start this off is that, like anything, if things don't change, they go stale. You can't have an artist, as much as you love that first album, if all they did was sound-alike copies of that first album for their entire career, 2-3 albums in, you get kind of annoyed with it. You know, and artists are gonna change their minds. And, you know, TV shows, they're gonna, you know, The Simpsons had 10 great seasons. And then 5 kind of good seasons after that. And then after season 15 or so, the quality starts to, you know, it's still a ratings juggernaut 30-something years later, but it's not the same show anymore. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It may not be for everybody. It may not be as good as it once was, in my mind, but hey, you know, that's okay. You know, a great example of this is, and by gosh, they're still popular, but the Call of Duty games.
Yeah.
They come out every year like clockwork, exactly the same as the year before. Maybe they change a little mode here. Maybe they tweak a little thing there. Maybe they upset the fans by doing this here. But every year's the same game. Nothing changes. They still sell. They're not the most popular games on the planet, but they're still churning out enough of a profit that EA keeps making them. So maybe this is a bad example. Maybe I painted myself into a corner here.
No, it's just even with that, fandom has changed. I mean, we're not playing those games, but I'm sure that with the modern technology and the way that the game keeps changing, I know, for instance, you can make your own teams now and things like that. You know, there's still changes, but it's...
Well, you know, here's the thing. I bought the first 2 or 3 Call of Duties.
Yeah.
The first Call of Duty game, the first Modern Warfare one, had these little plot things that they did in the single-player game that are amazing, that are probably some of the best to anybody who remembers. Mm-hmm. Who played the first Call of Duty game when the guy slides the pistol across to you on the bridge. Probably one of the coolest scenes, like straight out of an action movie, put into a video game. And that was like back in 2007. I still remember that scene. It was awesome. I haven't played the games since.
Yeah.
That was it. That was fun. That was cool. Then the next game came out and it was the same game. Then the next game came out and it was the same game. And I thought, you know, I'll move on to something else.
I think the last incarnation of that game that I remember you playing was you just playing the mini game, the zombie multiplayer.
Yeah, me and my friends doing couch co-op playing the zombie game.
Where you're, you know, Buffy and...
Oh, yeah, that was so much fun where they had Robert Englund and
Machete and yeah,
that was lots of fun. And you were fighting a zombie John Romero, who had a light standard that he was hitting you with. So much fun. But I want to preface this entire discussion as I'm building up this stuff here is as a big warning to everybody: the artists don't owe you anything.
Yeah.
So if your favorite author writes a book that you don't like, you're allowed to not like it. You're allowed, and if it's bad, you're allowed to review it badly. But that doesn't mean that they need to be threatened or doxxed or about 100 other things that actually happen to people because fans are upset. Oh, well, they ruined my Star Wars.
All the way down to if they cast somebody that you're not interested in or they create a character you didn't like. You don't have to go after the actor online and basically harass them out of any social media, killing their career because who wants to employ somebody who can't promote for them?
I'll give you a really good example of this that just happened in a fandom world we don't talk about very often. In the world of sports right now, it's the postseason for professional hockey in North America. Mm-hmm. And the team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who have not won the championship since 1967, who have the most fanatical, diehard fans in the league,
I think last year was the first time since 1967 that they made it to round 2. Or I'm sure I've got that wrong, but it was.
They made it into the postseason. Everybody had high hopes. They didn't go far. This season, they make it into the postseason. They're in the second round. They're playing last year's champions. They're playing the Florida Panthers. It goes to the 7th of 7 games, and they lose. And they lose in dramatic fashion. They lost 6-1, so they got annihilated. As the fans were leaving the stadium, they were pouring their beer on the players in anger. They were threatening to kill the goalie on Twitter. It's like, why? 5 minutes ago, they were your hero and your heroes and gods, and you worshiped them on a little altar that you made. And now that they lose, you're threatening to kill them.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? They got beat by last year's champions. They got beat by a better team. Guys, that's sports.
Yep.
That happens. And if you're that much of a crybaby that a bad movie or a bad album is leading you to death threats, calm down.
Yeah, maybe choose a different fandom or therapy. Therapy would be a good idea.
I mean, guess what? I was a fan of Metallica. When the album Load came out, I've always said that album Load was a load. I liked one song from it, Until It Sleeps, which is kind of like their big banger hit. Yeah. Everything else on that album and everything they've done after it, I don't like anymore. I'm not going to go threaten Kirk Hammett's life because I don't like his album. James Hetfield is on my permanent enemies list because of that album.
Could you imagine if, you're doing your job, you're trying your best, and something doesn't work out. Your project doesn't launch, your session doesn't go well, the PowerPoint messes up, and somebody gives you a death threat over it.
Imagine getting a note on Twitter one day directly to you from some anonymous person you don't know, and they go, I know you didn't put a cover sheet on your TPS report.
Yeah.
And now prepare to face the consequences of my wrath,
Meanwhile, these people, this is like the biggest thing that they're doing. This is their life. And it's, I'm fine. You can attack a person for being a horrible person. You can attack a person for the actions they do to other people. But when they are trying their best, you know what? Sometimes it doesn't work. And sometimes it fails. And if it's something creative, that's part of the creative process. And sometimes it's just not for you.
Hey, everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Yeah.
And, everybody is entitled, everybody has the freedom to like or not like whatever they want.
Yeah.
And it's okay for you to not like something that's very, very popular. It's also okay for you to like things that aren't very popular.
Yeah.
There are video games that I play, there are books that I read, there are music styles that I like that no one else does. And if you're curious about this, you can listen to our episode on Fandoms of One.
Yes, we did a whole episode of this.
But I'm not going to get bullied by somebody because I like something they don't, or I don't like, the latest album by some music artist. It's like, okay, well, that's cool. And I heard a song on the radio, but like, I'm not going to go spend thousands of dollars on concert tickets for a band I don't like. And I'm sorry, I don't like it that much. I mean,
yeah,
I don't care. I'm sorry. But also, if my favorite artist changes their style, or they want to experiment with a different sound, or one of my favorite authors wants to write a book about a subject I don't like, I'm not going to threaten to kill them either. Like, they owe me nothing.
Yeah, they welcomed you into their universe, and you take it as it is. We talk about creators not owing us anything, and I'm going to tackle the big one in the room, which is George R.R. Martin and not finishing his series. And I have spoken on this before. I think him making the deal with HBO was probably the worst thing that could have happened to the possibility of that series being completed. I think he did it as a way to spur himself on so that he would finish in time and that he would be racing the clock, not realizing how much of his life it would take over and get in the way of writing, and then seeing how much has changed that it's no longer his own thing. This is my speculation. I have not talked to George about this at all, but this is my speculation.
Because I know you guys are normally tight.
Oh, yeah, we're buds. No, never met him. My co-host did. I missed out, but my co-host did. But the thing is, there was that famous song, George R.R. Martin is not your expletive. And to be fair,
Is that John Anealio?
No, I think it's Jonathan Colton. It might be John Anealio. Now I can't remember. I think somebody's yelling at their MP3 player or car, but you know what? That's the beauty of how interactive this is. You can yell at me for not remembering off the top of my head. But the thing is, it's like that every time you start a series. If the series isn't completed yet, you might not get the end. I remember Kevin Smith not finishing a series of comic books, of Batman comic books. They were really good, and he didn't finish them. Am I a little bitter? Sure. You know what, though? Maybe it's better not finished. Maybe he couldn't finish it out with everything that made it what I loved in the beginning.
Well, I remember this was over 10 years ago now when he was writing on his live journal.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't write anything about the book in his live journal. But when he got super mega star popular, people would clamor to his writing, and he would write a post about his favorite football team.
Oh, yeah.
Or he
Big
was also
football fan.
Huge football fan and a chess player.
Yes. And collected war figurines.
Yeah.
Like minis.
Yeah, historical figurines. And he would write about one of these hobbies, and inevitably, after every post, would be page upon page upon page of comments of like, you shouldn't be writing about this, you should go back to work. And guys, this is his job.
Yeah.
He took time off from his job to enjoy a little bit of a hobby. So could you imagine, well, actually, you know what, right now? Everybody stop listening to this podcast and get back to work.
Yeah,
Okay,
get back to work.
You have other things to do, guys. You have other things to do than listen to us, and you should be devoted 24 hours to redesigning that cover sheet for the TPS report.
Even if it's not like your job, we all have a list of books we'd like to read. Imagine.
Sure, most of them are on that shelf over there, quietly collecting dust and being ignored.
It's okay, we'll get to you, I promise. Hey, I'm reading. But we have lists of books, lists of movies that we would like to see. And imagine if you couldn't do anything else. You had your job and books. It would, as much as we think, oh, I finally have time to read. At some point, you need something else. We need variety. And a creator, if they're not consuming, they can't create. You end up getting stifled. So,
well, George himself was one of the ones that always said that when people would ask him for writing tips, his number one writing tip was to read more.
Read. Absolutely. I get so frustrated when I hear writers, and there are some that I know that have said this, that they can't just read. But I find that if you are not consuming the media you're creating, you're going to go stagnant. And I don't understand how you can create but not consume. That's just maybe I don't get it. That's fine.
Personally, I know that my best writing was done when I was reading the best authors.
Yeah, agreed. So every series you start, it is possible that it might not finish. And at this point, I don't want George to finish, because with the series, either it's going to be going in a different direction and just feel weird, or too much like the series and I'll be annoyed. You know, it's a lose-lose situation if he finishes the series. So I kind of hope we never finish the series. You know, I think that we're at the point where it can just go, kind of like Firefly. I loved Firefly, but it's never coming back. We can move on. And sometimes we need to move on.
I think the creator of that show helped kill.
Yeah,
all of the
there is
nostalgia
part of that.
or at least all of the hope for a continuity just sort of quietly died. Thanks, buddy. But with that, with these long running series, I think of all genres, I think one of the things that's super important is the effect of nostalgia.
Yes,
and that, you know, I remember what it was like to watch Star Trek when I was a kid. And with the new Star Treks, I kind of want to get that feeling again. And I don't think that Discovery did a very good job of rekindling that nostalgic spirit that I had. The new series, Brave New World. Is that what it's called?
Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds. I think did a much better job.
Agreed.
Of beating that nostalgia hammer.
And granted, it's a spin-off of Disco, but yeah.
But it did it better.
Yeah.
both of them pale in comparison to Lower Decks.
Oh, Lower Decks.
Which is
so
the best new Star Trek show of them all, mainly because it knows how to tweak that nostalgia vibe.
Yeah.
And give you something fresh and fun and enjoyable. And they did 5 seasons and they stopped. And that's great. Am I going to threaten to kill somebody because I don't get a season 6 of my beautiful Tendi? I could. I'm not gonna.
No.
I'm disappointed. I always want more.
But I think they ended it well.
They did. It was a great show.
I think we got a lot from it, and I've always been the person who says, tell the story you want to tell and don't milk it, because we got 5 perfect seasons.
And I may be getting some of these facts wrong, but one of the big reasons that Dave Chappelle quit the Chappelle Show, or Chappelle's Show, was due to the fact that he was worried about growing stale. And he quit at the height of his fandom. John Cleese and Fawlty Towers. I think they got 1 series or 1 or 2 series, and then they quit because they were worried about the show getting stale. And that's okay. And they don't deserve our hate and our derision for that. You can be disappointed. You can be whatever you want. But I just got so annoyed. I'm sorry I'm on this rant, but I just got so annoyed watching those Leafs fans, crumple up their jerseys and throw them on the ice in disgust.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I love about sumo and a lot of Japanese sports is the idea that what you want to see is the best people going against the best people. And even if your guy doesn't win, they tried their best. And you got a good show.
Hey, that's one of the big reasons we love sumo so much.
Yeah.
Is that it's a wonderful competitive fight sport, but it doesn't have any of that trash talking that you see in like boxing and Ultimate Fighting.
Yeah, they're there to face off against, I have been a fan of this wrestler for years, and now I get to fight him.
Yeah.
That's pure. That's amazing. And I think the same can come from team sports. You're the best in the league, and you know what? You went to 7 good matches. You got 7 games, 7 good games. Mm-hmm. You should be proud of that. That should be exciting that your team got to game 7. They weren't finished in 4. They didn't finish in 5. They finished in 7.
And you know what? It's like these Maple Leaf fans, like they're all upset, but out of 32 teams, there was 8 left at this point. You made it further than all those other teams in the league. Both of our hockey teams have been eliminated a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I don't understand. I understand the disappointment, but I don't understand how disappointment turns to hate.
Also, you're a Leafs fan. You're used to disappointment.
You'd better be. They haven't won since 1967. I mean,
you should be used to this by now. So,
one more, but okay. So let's talk about the big nerdy elephant in the room: Star Wars. I saw this meme.
Yeah,
and this is the other thing that inspired me for this topic is a Star Wars fan getting upset that this movie isn't like the Star Trek that I remember because the TV show did this thing and I don't like it, but in my Star Wars of this, all these other movies, they pale in comparison to the 3 that I liked, and everything else is garbage and I hate it. Meanwhile, Godzilla fans are like, we've had 50 movies in, 70-something years. Every single one of them has a different Godzilla, and I love every single one of them.
Even the Matthew Broderick?
Even the weird Matthew Broderick one, he's the one that deserves our love the most of all,
It needs our love the most,
yeah.
Yes. But yeah, exactly. It's if you want to watch the original trilogy, they're still there. But the way I look at Star Wars now is the original trilogy was the original trilogy, and there was nothing like it. Then the prequels came out, and honestly, those were meant for little kids. I know that even in the original trilogy, there was the idea of merchandising and there was the idea of getting children into this. I just saw an interview with Harrison Ford about how he was acting and making sure that everything he did with Chewbacca was as you would with your dog, and that it was about, being with your best friend. A dog is a man's best friend, yada, yada. And that's the only way you could sell Han Solo. Otherwise, he can't be a hero that you love. You have to have something redeemable about him. And his relationship with Chewie is that, which I just think is awesome. But the original trilogy was different. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know if this was going to be a flop or not, but they did it and it was amazing. But guess what? There was plot consistencies even then. George Lucas broke up with his wife, and all the input she had in episode 1, he turned around and said, nope, I don't like her anymore. I'm going to change it all. Luke and Leia, they can't end up together. They're going to be brother and sister. They were not brother and sister in that first movie. He changed so many things out of spite, but you know what? We still love it. We still love that trilogy. And then the prequels, that was for little kids. And guess what? That generation, that was their Star Wars. Because then they went and watched Clone Wars. And then they came up with all this Clone Wars lore that we didn't have. Meanwhile, we're sitting here going, but the extended universe in the novels. But you know, what are you talking about, Ben? No, Leia and Han, they had twins and they had Anakin and they had, all that's out the window. And then the 3 sequels come out, and the biggest complaint, I think, is this is just like the old movie. They just did the old movie with new characters. And then you promised us all of these things and switched the script on us. Okay, I can have problems with different pieces of Star Wars. By the way, we got the TV shows. The TV shows are great. We can have different parts of problems with it, but I don't need to go on Twitter and attack the actors. I don't need to tell somebody you're not a real Star Wars fan because you like Jar Jar Binks. We knew somebody who had a Jar Jar Binks poster, and we were not so kind. I will admit I was not so kind, but guess what? That was their Star Wars. You're allowed.
There are, I don't even know where to begin. And I don't want to be the old man yelling at clouds here. There's a lot of things to be disappointed in how the Star Wars fandom changed.
Yeah.
Because those first 3 were such an important nostalgic piece of my youth. But if I sit and objectively think, like if I put my logic hat on and my Spock ears, and I think about this, those first 3 movies are not cinematic, movie of the year masterpieces.
Nope.
Like nobody's going to argue that episodes 4, 5, and 6 are the best movies ever made. You're not going to knock Citizen Kane off the top of the list here with these movies. There's plot holes. There's crummy acting. There's amazing special effects. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But they're not
aliens that actually look alien.
There is that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Jim Henson.
And space racism and all kinds of important things, but they're not that good comparatively.
Yeah.
Now, are they important in my life? Yes. Are they important in society? Yes. Are they the tropes that they build and the things that they have brought to the zeitgeist? Is that important? Absolutely. Do they have a lot of cultural impact? Yes. Are they good? Not really.
Well,
but that's okay because we have fun. Not
depending on your scale, I'll say.
Not everything has to be Citizen Kane.
Yeah. Did I study it in Star Wars in philosophy class? Yes, I did. We actually had a segment on Star Wars. It was awesome.
But there was I remember film reviewers that every comedy would get like a 1 out of 5 or a 2 thumbs down score.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is just another stupid screwball comedy. What a waste of time. See, yeah, not everything at the movie theater needs to be Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
Not everything will be, sometimes I just want to go crunch popcorn and watch something silly. I want to watch wizards with space laser swords.
Yep.
Beating up other wizards. I don't want to watch, Schindler's List every month of every year. I want to see...
some movies you'll only ever watch once.
Yeah. As important and as powerful as they may be. But back to Star Wars. Yeah, the fandom changed. Yeah, okay, the creators had different ideas for where they wanted to go and different audiences that they wanted to appeal to and different things that they wanted to try. Some of them were successful. I'll tell you, the animated series that they did for Star Wars, Clone Wars, Bad Batch, those are amazing. And the fans that they have, the entire new generation that they were able to pull in as Clone Trooper fans is amazing. And that's great. They're not my favorite, but They did that. That was a success. To me, I really liked Rogue One. Mm-hmm. I really liked the Han Solo movie. I know a lot of people didn't. A lot of people got really mad at the Han Solo movie.
I liked it.
I had fun with it. I thought The Mandalorian was a great TV show. I had a lot of fun with The Mandalorian. I didn't like some of the other ones. Some of the other TV shows, I didn't finish. I didn't like them. And that's okay. I'm allowed to like things. I'm also not threatening to kill George Lucas because he changed my Star Wars.
I have watched every Star Trek, at least started every Star Trek. Prodigy, which is an animated, and it was geared for younger children. It was good. I just didn't finish it. Will I go back and finish it? Probably. But you know what? Like, it wasn't written for me. There's, I can't remember the name of it, but it like The Leftovers, the Rejects, something like that. Skeleton Crew. That's it. The Star Wars TV show about a bunch of kids. And I watched the first episode and said, yeah, this is kind of cool. If I were 14, this would be right up my alley. Guess what? It's not for me. Yeah. And that's okay.
Hey, Nutty, you're not 14.
I know, but I do like a lot of things 14-year-olds like. I laugh when somebody says but. Duty. You said duty. But that's okay. Now, I think one of the things that we need to be careful of is trying to hold our nostalgia too tightly. Because if Star Wars, the original trilogy, came out today, we would not like it.
No.
And I have proof of this. My proof of this is in the Ghostbusters fandom. Because when Ghostbusters 2016 came out, the humor, the kind of acting, the kind of story is pretty much what the first Ghostbusters movie is.
That was the one with the lead female cast, right?
Yes.
That's the one you're talking?
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
that's the one with the lead female cast. And you may have liked it. You may not have liked it. But, and you did finally watch that with me, right?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. I liked it.
You finished it?
Yeah. The best part of it was Thor as the receptionist.
And a friend of the show, Billy Flynn, that's what he hated about it. He hated it so much because he thought it was so sexist. And I was like, but it's the gag.
But that's the gag. And
honestly, Chris Hemsworth, after doing Thor, was probably just having so much fun being goofy and silly.
But then, when the other sequel comes out, and so they tried to hit the nostalgia button really hard with the next Ghostbusters movie by bringing the surviving members of the original cast back for like a 15-minute cameo.
At the end.
Right. I never made it.
Yeah. Did I ever get you to watch that last 15 minutes?
No. The rest of that movie, to me, was so gosh awful and so hard to watch that I rage quit.
Yeah.
And
Paul Rudd could not save it.
Yeah, Paul Rudd Ant-Man could not save that movie.
I liked his scenes.
And then it gets to the end, like right at the very beginning. It's like, hey, everybody calls me podcast because I have a podcast. Do you want to listen to my podcast? Here's all my episodes on a USB stick. It's like, that's not how podcasts work, but okay, buds.
Yeah. And I've seen that trope in like Mighty Ducks and a couple other things. Like they have this kid that's a podcaster and that's his whole personality. And it's just, But regardless, Ghostbusters 2016 had the same vibe. People didn't like it. I liked it. I enjoyed it. But it didn't catch on the same way because guess what? That's already been done. We have so much nostalgia for Ghostbusters. Most people don't remember and can't look objectively at that first movie. The second movie was as silly as we remember it. The first movie is not as silly. And let's not forget the cartoon that most of us knew. Like, everything you know about Slimer comes from the cartoon.
Yeah, because he's in like 3 seconds of the original movie.
Yeah.
The second, okay, so the 2016? Is that the other one? Okay, the 2016 movie also got a lot of unnecessary hate just due to sexism.
Yeah.
Because it was an all-female cast.
I will say not everybody who disliked it was because of sexism. I'm gonna say that. I don't believe that is true for all people.
I'm not saying it was all. I'm saying that some
the toxic fans, it was 100% that.
Now, the second movie, I remember all of our friends just going cuckoo bananas. It's the best thing ever. Oh my God, the last 15 minutes are the greatest thing ever put to cinema. No, it hit that nostalgia button and made you really happy to see Bill Murray again.
Yeah.
That's what that did. And that's okay. That's fun when they do that. But that didn't save that movie for me.
No. And you know what? If you loved it, that's fine. We're not saying you're wrong. It's just, it didn't hit for us. It was not, to me, it was only Ghostbusters in that last 15 minutes.
Ghostbusters is one of those examples of they tried.
Yeah.
And they didn't do as good as, let's say, something like Lower Decks. That they tried to bring an old franchise back. They tried to hit that nostalgia button, and I don't think they were as successful.
And I think a lot of it also has to do with the fans in the fandom. So Tech and I met online role playing, and there were lots of different role playing games that you could play. And I had a joke, and it was, what's the difference between White Wolf role players and Star Wars role players?
I don't know, Nutty. What is the difference between White Wolf role players and Star Wars role players?
Nothing. Because they were that up their own butts. Okay? Like, we also started role playing in the era when you had to like Star Trek or Star Wars, and we were the weirdos who were like, I like both. Why is it a thing? Yeah. But yeah, it was, oh, you don't know this obscure thing from the books? You're not a real fan, that sort of thing. So Star Wars is full of, not every Star Wars fan, obviously, but the fandom is full of people that are, well, actually is their main character trait. And so you're never going to satisfy the fandom. Now, Whovians, Doctor Who fans, this is a series that the Doctor, the main character, has changed many times, and it's come in and out. I mean, they even had a bad U.S. Made movie, and yet it still survives. They go through different directors, they showrunners, they go through different writers, and you know what? Some Doctors hit for you, some Doctors don't. But I think that part of that is, on the whole, most Whovians are more forgiving. They're able to say, yeah, this isn't my Doctor, and move on. They're not offended that you've ruined the Doctor that they fell in love with. There's this feeling like, if you make bad Star Wars, we're going to keep harping on Star Wars, sorry. If you make bad Star Wars, you've ruined the movie that you fell in love with.
It amazes me how many of these so-called, like, I remember when the Doctor Who resurgence started, how many of these massive Doctor Who fans were not fans of Doctor Who. They ended up being fans of David Tennant.
Yeah. Or Matt Smith, or whichever Doctor,
And then when the Doctor changed, they got all up in arms and very upset. It's not the same show anymore. No, it's exactly the same show it always was. The Doctor changed. Well, they shouldn't have done that. No, that's the point of the show.
Yeah.
The Doctor changes. But the one thing, as I'm listening to us here, and friends, wireless listeners, gatekeeping is never okay.
Right.
And that's maybe my other big point that I want to make here, is that everybody has a right to like what they want to like and not like what they don't want to like. And we don't have, as much as we may feel like we are guardians of our fandoms and of our hobbies and our pastimes and our passions, if somebody doesn't like the TV show you like, that you're allowed to have these disagreements. And hate and gatekeeping, I don't think is ever okay.
Yeah.
And just because a fan, if a new Star Trek fan comes in and says, hey man, I just started watching this Strange New Worlds show. I've never seen any other Star Trek before. I really like it. This show's cool. My favorite character is this guy. There's two reactions you can have. And why is it that the majority of the reactions is, no, you're wrong.
Yeah.
The best character is the one you've never seen from a show you don't like, blah, 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 blah. Instead of, oh man, you mean you've never seen the original series? 72 episodes, about 30 good ones?
Yeah.
What would you like to start with? A really, really good one or a really, really bad one? Let's sit down and watch Spock's brain and make fun of it,
Yep.
If we have to be more welcoming and we have to be more tolerant of our artist creators. Not everyone is going to make stuff that you like all the time, and that's okay. it's okay to move on. I guess is my point. And it's okay to like stuff that somebody does at one point and not like some of their other stuff.
And it's okay to be a new fan and dive in, but not know everything.
Yeah.
No matter how much of a hard time I give Jason for not being able to pronounce Deanna Troy's name, I don't think that he's a fake Trek fan, you know?
But there's so much there's so much media out there for us to consume that spending our time in silly virtual arguments over, George Lucas making episode 1 does not ruin episode 4.
Yeah.
And just because you didn't like episode 1 doesn't mean somebody else is wrong for liking it. I guess is my whole point in all of this. And just because the Leafs get eliminated in an embarrassing blowout, losing to Florida, is no reason for you to threaten to kill a goalie. Okay, leave him alone. He did his best.
Yeah.
And they lost to the champions. And that's, hey, guess what? That's sports. That's life. I'm trying to say, could you imagine threatening to kill George Lucas because you didn't like his movies? But no, people did that.
People did that, yeah. And
how embarrassing for us.
Yes, how embarrassing. I also think that it's worth mentioning that fandom isn't silly. Fandom, I can understand somebody's emotions being very high because fandom to me, it is part of my personality. It is it's like a friend. Different fandoms. Tech and I met in a Star Trek role-playing chat room. Star Trek is like another friend of ours. Being a Trekkie, which I now, call myself, is important to me. But that said, I have to have some control over my own self. And I think that sometimes it's hard to have that separation. So while we were getting ready for this episode, one of the things that I looked up was what was the oldest fandom that we know of. Now, I'm sure that there's older fandoms than what I found in the 19th century, but what I found was Janeites, fans of Jane Austen, and Sherlockians.
What about the Scarlet Pimpernel? I believe that may be older.
I'm not sure about that one, but I will let you look that up.
Scarlet Pimpernel by Baroness Orczy, published 1905. I thought it was much older than that. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I thought it was newer, but
I stand corrected.
I expected to be wrong there. But the reason I bring this up is Sherlockians were so invested, and it's still known as, do you play the game? And that is the belief. They know it's not real, but it is the belief that Sherlock is real. And when the character died, fans went into mourning. They rioted. They were so upset. And
when he goes off the falls fighting...
Reichenbach Falls.
Fighting...
Moriarty.
I was going to say Montague, but no. Moriarty.
No. It is not a cask of Amontillado, but I can see where you're getting there. But... It's fans were shook. They were so upset. And it really is the birth. And I'm sure, again, that other people did this, but it's the birth of documented fan fiction because people started continuing the story. Eventually, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle went back to the well and brought Sherlock back. But when you realize that people have been so powerfully swayed by fandom, you can understand sports fandom to a point. Not to a point that I do not agree that giving death threats to hockey players or any players is appropriate.
There's an argument I had with an old boss many years ago that there is absolutely no difference between him wearing the jersey of his favorite player to a sports game as me wearing rubber Spock ears to a convention.
Yeah, there isn't.
There is absolutely no difference. I don't believe that I'm Spock any more than he believes that he's a member of the Detroit Red Wings.
Yep. He's a Detroit fan? Oy. But exactly. And that's the thing. It matters. And it is something that we're passionate about. It's something you think about. I mean,
and that's the thing. We get so invested and they form such a huge part of our life and our identity and our social scenes and the friends and the media that we consume in our leisure hours. And it becomes very important to us and we become very passionate, but we have to watch how we wield that passion.
Yeah.
Because wielding it wrong leads to toxicity, it leads to gatekeeping, and it leads to a bunch of other problems that we can all frankly do without. And it's okay that media changes.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite bands, like I've got one or two of their albums, and then the other ones I just softly ignore because I don't like them.
And sometimes your fandom changes because you changed. What you cared about when you were growing up is going to be different, and revisiting the source material, sometimes things change. So I'm going to use a TV show, Gilmore Girls. When I first watched it, I identified mostly with Rory. When I watched it again years later, I identified with Lorelai, the mother. When I watched it right before the renewal or the revival, I found myself identifying with the grandmother. Because
that's fun.
I had gone through different stages. You know, I started watching this show shortly after university.
Maiden Mother Crone.
Yeah, exactly. You can go through the full Maiden Mother Crone. Harry Potter. A lot of people grew up with the Harry Potter books, reading them as they grew up. And Harry and Hermione and Ron, these are kids that they grew up with. It's part of their childhood. But you know what? You're an adult now, and things might be different. The creator may be a piece of garbage. Maybe they have beliefs that you do not agree with. Maybe funding things you don't agree with. So what do you do with that? You know, what do you do? You know, I was a brown coat. I love Buffy. What do you do when the creator, the person who wrote these things, turns out to be abusive, turns out to be someone that you don't share values with? And this is a whole other conversation, you know, separating art from the artist, but sometimes that can change your relationship with the fandom. I say, much like the creators don't owe you anything, you do not owe the creator anything. If a creator has turned their back on you in that way, you have every right to still care about the fandom and to care about the characters and decide, I'm just not going to give you any money. Or whatever it is that you want.
Yeah.
Because you don't owe the creator anything either.
No, exactly. And it's like, oh, the new Star Wars movie is out. I like Star Wars. I guess I have to go see it. Why? Why do you have to?
Yeah.
Why are you dragging yourself to a theater for a movie you're not going to like? If you know you're not going to like it, then don't go.
Yeah.
If you want to see it and you do like it, then go. And there's I was just reading about a video game maker that they described serious hardcore RPG fans as what they called living in the nerd cave. And that no matter what they did, good or bad, these hardcore fans were going to come out. So they didn't try to appease them because they didn't have to, because they knew they'd always be there.
Yep.
So that they could just go and play out of left field a little bit and do something a little crazy because they knew that hardcore nugget of their fandom would always be there. And maybe that's what Star Wars tried to do. Maybe that's what Star Trek tried to do with shows like Discovery. Is they knew they knew we were going to be there watching anyways.
Yep.
So they might as well try something fun and new and fresh. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. But guess what? They're artists. They're creatives. They're being creative. They're trying things. A great example is, wow, I'm going to really hit the nostalgia button hard here, Nutty. The band Sugar Ray.
Okay.
Most people don't remember the first album, which was a, hardcore punk album.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody listened to. When they had that hit with I Wanna Fly,
they leaned in hard.
They leaned in hard on this radio pop-friendly sound, and they did a very sugary, sweet pop album. Do you know what the name of that album is? No?
No.
The album is called 1459 because they knew their 15 minutes of fame were up.
Nice.
And then never listened to another album of theirs again. I don't know how many others they made after that, but I didn't hear them. And then he went on to become a TV presenter, I think.
Yeah. So one of the things that I love about that is, like, if you want to know what Sugar Ray used to look like, watch the movie Father's Day.
Yeah, because they're the punk band that the kid ran away to.
Horribly scary punk band that this kid's following around, and and then a year later they're on MTV and you're like, I don't understand.
Yeah, but I know that there were some very hardcore Sugar Ray fans
Yeah.
that were mad that they changed to this pop sound.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But they were global superstars with it. Mm-hmm. Look, my favorite, one of my favorite bands, The Prodigy, had 2 or 3, let's say 3 great albums in the 90s. Mm-hmm. They've released 5 or 6 more since. I've listened to them. I don't own them. I don't go back and listen to them nearly as often as I go back to listen to those first from the 90s. Am I going to go burn down Liam Howlett's house?
No.
Because I don't like his new album? No, guess what? He's an artist. He can make whatever he wants. He owes me nothing. Am I planning to get an ant tattoo to celebrate my love of Prodigy? Yes. Do I like every single song they have? No. Is that okay? Absolutely.
Well, and that's the thing. It's you might have changed. They might have changed. And that's fine. You're allowed to like that one album, or you're allowed to like just that part of it. And that doesn't change anything for you. I'm allowed to sit here and say, I loved Encyclopedia Brown books. They were fantastic. No, I do not want to read them again to find out that they're not good. I'm just going to live with them in my nostalgia brain and keep it as well as I remember. And that's it. We can leave it there.
Man, can you please have the infographic for this episode be Old Man Simpson yelling at clouds? This is all, guys, my friends, wireless listeners, I'm sorry.
We are old people yelling at clouds, but the other thing is
please join us on Discord and yell at clouds with us.
There's been a lot of revivals. Some of them I like. I love She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. Some people didn't like it. It's a departure from what it was. I think it's awesome.
My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic.
Yep. Absolutely. Man, the bronies.
Yeah. Completely changed the formula of the show. And, man, did they ever knock it out of the park with a revival.
Yeah.
It's a show for children. It's a show for little children. I'm not saying anything else, but they did, but it's a very good show for what it is.
Absolutely. But sometimes it doesn't work. I'm stammering to think of one right now.
The Michael Bay Transformers movies.
There you go. Thank you so much for that. They're not for me. They're for someone. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles last live action movie, not for me.
The animated one, though.
The animated one was
great.
So good. I was so happy with that.
The animated Miles Morales Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now
fantastic.
we got to wait like 2 or 3 more years to get the last one.
But you know what? I kind of dig that we're getting those at the same time as getting other things. There's
It's a Spider-Verse, man. We're allowed to have multiple things at once.
Yeah, like there's the revival of X-Men 97. I loved it. Not everyone's going to love it. And that is somebody doing exactly what they were doing in the 90s. And so for some people, they're not going to like it. And that's okay. Bringing back Powerpuff Girls didn't work. Gem and the Holograms didn't work. But guess what? They tried.
Yeah,
doesn't change how much I loved it.
That Gem and the Holograms, you mean the live action one?
Yeah, we know it's trash.
Yeah, let's try to bring it back, but let's not involve the original creator.
Let's not have anything other than the title be the same. Yeah, no.
Oof.
But I mean, imagine if I could totally see it happening. Like they do another Hannah Montana. Imagine how the fans of Hannah Montana would feel about that. They would lose their marbles. But there's a whole group of people that never had that. So, there's these things evolve and not everything's for you, and it's okay. And sometimes they are.
It'll be very interesting to see over the next. I'm curious to see what the next big hit is going to be, and what the next big nostalgia wave is going to be. Because aren't we due for a Pokemon nostalgia? No, because it's still running like a juggernaut after 30, 40 years. So there's no need for nostalgia yet. It's still going. If you told me that the next biggest kids show was going to be an Australian cartoon about a dog, I would not have believed you. But Bluey...
Oh, yeah. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, Bluey. Nobody expected Bluey. It's not Blue's Clues. It's just another blue dog. But yeah, nobody expected that. And yet
here we go.
That's what I'm looking forward to. I mean, I am looking forward to the next fandom, not the continuation, but the next fandom coming.
I can't wait to see it. The one thing, so I guess if I was to sum up, is friends, be kind.
Yeah, be kind.
And
forgive yourself, forgive your fandom.
Yeah, and watch something old, watch something new, and go watch Bluey. You know?
And for me, I was talking about how fandom's really important. Right now, there are things going on in the world that we are not talking about on the podcast. And it's not because we're trying to avoid them, but because the mission of this podcast has always been to highlight things that are awesome, to be a distraction, to give us something positive. There are times when we want to talk about things, and we've recorded things, and I did not put it out because I didn't think it was positive enough. I didn't think it fit this kind of show.
Even then, this topic is sort of treading that line.
We're treading that line. But same thing with fandom. When life gets really, really hard, throw on your fandom and wrap it around you like a warm blanket that makes you feel safe.
Go into that cave, put your fingers in your ears, yell la 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 la, and watch episode 4, 5, and 6 again.
Yeah.
And ignore what's going on outside for a little while because, you know, sometimes it's pretty awful.
Just throw on Lower Decks and have fun and think about the utopian ideal, the fantasy that is Starfleet.
Yep. Hey, I'm on my Futurama. I'm through my Futurama rewatch right now, and I'll watch every episode except Fry's dog.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to cry at a cartoon again.
So what are Futurama fans called?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I feel like it should have a title, you know?
Let me check. I don't know.
Yeah. I did find some interesting fandom names, by the way, before we cut out.
Sure.
Bondians for James Bond. Didn't know they had a name. We know Beatlemaniacs, right? With brownies and brown coats, deadheads. J-Knights is one that I learned. Madonna wannabes. Didn't know that they were wannabes. Moonwalkers for fans of Michael Jackson.
Okay. Apparently for Futurama, they call themselves the Earthicans.
Oh, that's perfect. My fellow
Earthicans.
You got parrot heads and Potter heads. Rail fans. Can you guess what that is?
Rail fans.
Yes.
Nope.
That is the fans of train fan, rail buff, train buff, railway enthusiast.
Oh.
Yeah.
They're important to our culture.
They are important to our culture.
What's the other one?
Swifties. Tifosis.
Monsters.
Yep, monsters. Yep. Trekkies, Whovians. Toonheads are specifically American cartoons like Hanna-Barbera, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and Warner Brothers, and Popeye. Otakus for anime. Yeah, they're just, and stans. Where does stan, if you're a stan of something?
That came, if I remember, that is from the, that is a song by Eminem.
Yes.
About Stan, an obsessive fan who's writing a very creepy fan letter to Eminem.
But a lot of K-pop fans call themselves stans.
Yeah, so when you stan for someone
Yeah.
is when you become that obsessive fan, like Stan in the song by Eminem.
Yeah. Which I when I learned the origin, it made sense, but I was kind of surprised.
It's a pretty deep pull.
It's a deep pull, but people are proud to call themselves stans. Okay. It works. No judgment. But yeah, I just think that the nicknames are always fun. I love the nicknames. So if there's one that you know of that you think is a little fun, go ahead and throw it in the Discord. Let us know what's the most out there or fun fandom name that you can think of. Anything else?
No, that's great. So yeah, like Nutty mentioned earlier, I think I'm going to end on the note that we've been ostriching a little bit. We have had our heads stuck in the sand as the world around us gets complicated and some days not a lot of fun. And we've been busy with a lot of personal stuff going on too. So we're going to try to get back out there. We're going to try to find something a little bit more fun, and we'll get back out there.
Yeah, and we are very happy to continue being in your ears. So hopefully you will hear us pretty soon. Talk to you then. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
we want to thank our patrons, without whom we would not be able to give generous gifts to various charitable organizations. The quarter four for 2024, finally I got a consensus, it took a while, is going to Vets Canada. So Vets Canada is an organization that provides aid and comfort to veterans that are in crisis, are at risk of becoming homeless, or are homeless. We will be putting up a new poll for quarter one of 2025, now that that's over, to vote where the next chunk of donations go to. So I really want to thank everyone that's been helping us and making sure that we put out at least one episode a month. Trying for two, but we've been a little slow. We've admitted it. We're a little slow, and we want to thank everyone for their support anyway. So thank you to our top tier Big Daddies. Thank you to Jason and Rich. Thank you to our patrons of the arts, Kaylin, Hugh, Mark, Cabot, Mark, the encaffeinated one, have to separate those two, and Susanna. And thank you to the rest of our patrons, the lifeblood of this Patreon campaign. Thank you to Shane, Selganor, Cliff, Greg, Harold, Ian, Ken, Kinsey, Melissa, Mike, Nix, Radical Geek, Will, and Zach Band. Thank you so much, everyone.
Nutty Bites is produced by Nimlas Studios under a Creative Commons Attribution No Commercial Non-Derivatives 3.0 International License. That means you can't change it without my permission. You can share it and send it to your friends. Just link back to me, my site, and everything. We live at nimlas.org, which has links to everything social media, including facebook.com/group/nuttybites and patreon.com/nukejoss, or call 347-NUTTY42.